We're going to start in about 30 seconds. If everyone could please have a seat. Thank you. Hey, George. Um, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Diane. Thank you. Thanks. Me as well. We'll have one. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council Committee of the Whole to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Lauer,
Yes.
Alderman Sage,
Here.
Alderman Millawamwe,
Here.
Alderman Stern,
Here.
Alderman Painter,
Here.
Alderman Schmidt,
Here.
Alderman Black,
Here.
Alderman Howman,
Here.
Alderman Fruin,
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here. We're going to go ahead and start with public comment. We have three people who, again, you have up to 3 minutes. Julian Sigler, if you'd come forward. Thanks, Julian.
Julian Sigler, 904 West Grove Street. I wanted to speak about the bulk waste program. I think I said it before, but I'd like to reiterate that the fee, the citizens are already paying a fee right now. The fee consists of alley maintenance, weeds, garbage, recycle, bulk, brush, and the drop-off facility. Um, they also pay their taxes. Uh, feel like they're paying for the whole thing anyway, as far as it goes. Um, just want to kind of put it out there that, this, in the scheme of things, we're kind of losing sight of we're here to serve the public. We're serving a core service that is essential to this city. It keeps the area clean. It keeps the businesses coming in. It keeps people in the community. We already have codes in place that forbid people from stockpiling trash and everything else up in their house. And basically by wanting to change things around, you guys are going to have to do something with the code enforcement. I don't think that's going to look good around the neighborhoods when people are stockpiling everything. And I think we need to get away from having an enterprise fund for this. It was subsidized for years and years and years. We've made over 5.5 million. I don't quote me on the exact number, but 5.5 million on it. We were specifically told that, yeah, some of that money was used for different projects around the city. Well, if that's the case, then I think you can subsidize a little bit of it. I mean, it's nice to have money stuck away somewhere. I'd love to have extra money stuffed in my account sometimes, but other times you got to pay the bills. I just don't want to see the council get smoke screened again like you did with the automation. We were told it was going to save all this money and, we're still paying for it. We just need to think about what's right for the citizens. You got a lot of people that I talk to in my area have commented about, it was said that they thought that the landlords were the ones that were abusing the bulk waste system. That's not true. Landlords pay just the same as everybody else. If they're throwing out more on the curb, they're getting charged more for it. People out there, I don't think it's right that they have to, as a citizen, I don't feel it's right that if I put a chair out, it's going to be $50. I mean, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I think, like I said, with the fees in place and the taxes coming out of the other side, you know, you're paying for it the whole way anyway. There's no sense in saying, oh, we got to raise this and raise that. I mean, there's, you know, not trying to take it out on any other departments, but we're not closing any parks down. We're not closing swimming pools down or anything like that. But yet we're looking at uh, messing with something that is essential to the city itself for everything. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you very much. Let's see, fist bump.
Mayor Renner, excuse me, could I ask that when people approach the um, podium to speak, that they remove their hats?
Okay, yes.
As a
I think that
courtesy?
is the case in normal. We don't, haven't enforced that. And, okay, and it's actually Josh, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and sorry to show any disrespect there. I certainly didn't mean to. Fist bump here with the morning buzz on Cities 92.9 with Ian Bain. You can hear us on weekdays from 5 to 8 a.m. The city government is planning a strategy for downtown Bloomington tonight. Interesting choice of words. A strategy is usually something you're forcing on others, a battle strategy. I have a hard time saying that word. A sales strategy, or even trying to pick up ladies at the local bar. Am I right, guys? This guy knows what I'm talking about. So the people of Bloomington are to be conquered by the city government of Bloomington, enforcing a natural lifestyle on us, to live in a certain way, an urban setting like Chicago. Many of us and our families fled places like Chicago and St. Louis in search of a better place like Bloomington. And now we're being told that Bloomington isn't good enough. We're being told we have to change Bloomington in a place more like Chicago or St. Louis. And we get to pay for that change. Sounds like a raw deal for me. If Professor Renner and candidate Amelia Baragas want to control the people, why not buy one of those SimCity video games? Let us live our own life. Fist bump over and out for now.
Gary Lambert. Thanks.
Good evening. There's an item on the agenda this evening that talks about spending some number of dollars to purchase some software so that we can report potholes. And this in light of a council that tentatively, at least for the second year in a row, has approved $0 for maintaining the roads out of the general fund. I don't know how you can improve on something if you turn around then and don't allocate some dollars for maintaining the roads and allow Jim Karch to do his job. Thank you.
Thank you. We move next to the Committee of the Whole minutes from November 17th, 2014. And the staff recommendation is that the reading of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole proceedings of November 7th, 2014 be dispensed and the minutes be approved as printed. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman Painter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Schmidt. Any comments, corrections? And I think we can do that by voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show that that was unanimous. And we move on to our discussion items. We have 5 discussion items this evening, and we've got rough time budgets associated with each. And the first is a familiar topic to all of us, and that is solid waste management. We've got about a 5-minute presentation and a target of about 30 minutes for question and answer on this first item. Mr. Hales.
Thank you, Mayor. As the council's requested, we put this topic on tonight's Committee of the Whole, and I think the main purpose is to hear from you, the elected officials. What changes in the solid waste program or the fee structure would you support? Before we do hear from you, I just would like to throw out a couple of key suggestions or comments. As staff has been looking at and discussing your input from the last meeting, I would like to throw out a couple of key concepts that, if you could, maybe you'd like to incorporate those in and give us comments as to whether or not these might be something you would support going forward. But just very briefly, what we have heard very strongly that the brush service should be provided with no additional charge. You might call it free, But that's certainly one scenario we're looking at would incorporate that. So no additional charge or fee for brush service. The second is based on what we've heard, one scenario we're looking at would reduce the bulk waste service on a per bucket load down to $25. So $25 as opposed to 50, which previously was recommended. $25 for the bulk waste service per bucket could help us with trying to balance out this particular solid waste fund. To help accommodate and to deal with a very significant structural deficit, what I'm also suggesting as part of this proposal is that we transfer from the general fund to the solid waste fund $1.5 million. Previously, we were trying to kind of get away from and avoid down the future a significant transfer or any transfer from the general fund. But with a $1.5 million transfer, together with no additional charge for brush, $25 for bulk waste service, what we can do is we can bring this fund to a balance with one exception. There would still be about $500,000 deficit projected for next year. Now, what I would like to suggest is to address this $500,000 that the city staff, specifically the Public Works Department and the Solid Waste Service, utilize this next summer to look for greater efficiencies in providing the solid waste service. We believe that these efficiencies can be achieved, but it could come as a result of some pilot or experimenting with what might be the frequency of brush and bulk waste pickup service. It could come with looking at modifications to our current 3-crew model that is currently being used. It could come as people begin to adjust to the fact that bulk waste service would have a small fee of $25. We do think that there would be changes in habits and how people might utilize that service. So once again, with a $1.5 million transfer, $25 per bulk waste per bucket, no additional charge for brush, and with the main responsibility of the administration to work this next summer to see how we can achieve additional efficiencies, we believe that we can bring down that $500,000 deficit, hopefully to something to where maybe at least it would balance out through some actual experience in working with the residents of our city. So I'd like to just throw that out to you. And if you could maybe incorporate that, because we do think maybe, my hope is maybe this is a framework that you could respond to, as well as any other direction you want to give us as we continue to work on a proposal, specific proposal to bring back to the council the first meeting in April. With that, Mayor,
Okay.
thank you.
And then just to reiterate, the more specific that you can be in what you're interested in and what you're in favor of would certainly be helpful at this point in having staff coming to us with some viable options as we move forward. So we've got about 30 minutes budgeted, so I'll kind of keep a light eye on the clock as we go forward. Who'd like to start us out? Alderman Fruin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll give it a try. I concur that we would not have additional fees for landscaping or recycling. With regard to David's comment about bulk waste, I would like to see us provide the first bucket free and to provide a expense of $50 for subsequent buckets. And I really want to address my comments very quickly on cart size. And I want to say that a year ago, we as a staff and council instructed residents to choose the cart that would accommodate their greatest need. And we specifically talked about the holiday periods. We advised residents that the lid should close. And as a result, many residents took our comments and made those decisions based on that. They complied. In this last year, we have seen many residents that are
not closing their lids that are filling in the garbage carts with more than will fit. So I guess I'd like to put a plug in tonight for one fee for carts regardless of the size. Let people trade those as they wish, but not to differentiate between expense for carts. I think it just provides a divide. And I would suggest a monthly fee of $25. Thank you.
And you meant across the board?
Yes.
I see. Okay. Let's see. Alderwoman Schmidt, I'm going to just keep going around.
Thank you for taking brush off the table. I appreciate that. I think we all heard pretty clearly that that was not a good idea. I have to say and repeat, I think that at least some folks in my ward, I think there's a real push against this as an enterprise fund. I think there's a request to make this as simple as possible. I hear people consistently say that it's a service that they love, that means a lot to them, and we've begun to talk about why it became an enterprise fund and whether that was the right decision or not. I really hope we'll take some time to model other ways of paying for this and to simplify it. I think the overriding request is please simplify this so that we don't have these repeated conversations about this. People have gone from $7 now to 16 to 18 to 20, whatever it is, and now we're talking about bulk waste charges, and I'm not sure how we got into that conversation, but I'd like to figure out a way to back ourselves out of that. The crews do a great job, and I also appreciate your suggestion that maybe they will also be part of the solution over the summer.
Okay. Alderman Sage, and then we'll come back around.
Just
Go this way. Okay. Painter and Painter, Stearns, and Sage.
Okay, thank you. I've talked to quite a few people in my ward, and I've gotten very diverse ideas. Some people think it would be fair to charge $50 per bucket, but the problem with that is, talking to other people, that that will start neighbor wars because there are a lot of snowbirds in my neighborhood, and people will just dump their garbage onto their neighbor's property, and then they'll get charged for it, and that won't work out. And charging for a bucket load or a second bucket load, it didn't work out last time when we were supposed to charge $25 per second bucket load. It was all up to the discretion of the garbage man, and they fell back in favor of the resident. And so we never saw the income that we were supposed to see from that. I think that whatever we do, it should be across the board, and it should be fair for everyone. Um, I'm really grateful that you took the brush off of the table because boy, oh boy, that really was big news around town. Everybody was talking about that, and I'm glad that that is over with. Um, People love the garbage service that we have by and large. I haven't heard anybody say anything negative about it, and when you consider that they also do snow plowing and they clean out alleys and they do a lot of other things besides picking up the garbage, I think perhaps we should take that into consideration when we think about how much we should charge for their services. So it's still a work in progress, but I'm confident we can get there. Thanks.
Alderwoman Stearns.
I'm appreciating the comment we got from one of the workers who actually is doing this job out there on the streets. They do a fantastic job, and it's something that hits very close to home with our citizens, and they really appreciate it. It's a very core service. It's the very heart of what we do as a city. And I'm in total agreement. I feel why and how did this get put into the enterprise fund area? I had someone ask me today directly on the phone, who made this decision? I remember when it was made. I don't remember voting on it. I didn't think we did. But I don't think it's the proper prioritization when you consider that we certainly fund other things and subsidize other things much less core than this. Another thing that's critical about, well, a couple more things. It is these fees are very regressive. We do have wards in the city, and I personally am a fan of that. We represent a select group of people. In my ward, there are a lot of people who are struggling. And I mean, they are, living paycheck to paycheck. Every $10, every $20 counts. Not everyone in my ward, but a lot of people are. And I think sometimes as a council, some of us, I mean, we've done very well, some of us, and we don't understand what $20 means to the working poor, to someone who's struggling with 2 or 3 jobs, to someone who's struggling with children, to fixed incomes. And we have a lot of people on fixed incomes in our community. And it means a lot to them. You talk about $50, that's almost inconceivable. And what is a bucket load? These people have no idea. How do I put a bucket load out? How do I know what that is? I'm not a fan of charging for the first. I'm not a fan of charging for the first bucket load. The second bucket load, I do understand, and yes, there is abuse, and that must be addressed. But another call I got today was from a gentleman, very much of a Bloomington guy, born and raised, but lives on the edge of town now, and told me a story about people who come out and throw something in the ditch. And I know people have said, well, let's enforce the littering and the dumping and all that. This guy told me that he called the Bloomington police and actually had a license number, and certainly taking nothing away from the police, but they said, we have to witness this. We have to see this. I think enforcing, dumping laws and such is next to impossible. I don't know how you get cameras out on some of these remote, country lanes when somebody throws this stuff out at 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever they're doing. But it is a concern. And this guy told me, clearly that he tried. He even had a license number and couldn't get the thing, dealt with. So, and again, it takes nothing away from the county police or from anybody else, but it is an enforcement scenario that is really, really difficult. So I think we need to reprioritize. I think we need to look at our budget, look at the millions of dollars going to entertainment and various venues that a lot of people in my ward don't even think about being able to afford, and look at the affordability of life in Bloomington for some of our struggling citizens. Thank you.
Alderman Sage and then Lau.
And I might just mention, I don't know if Boca would want to comment. I don't
thank
know
you.
for sure. So just reacting to a couple of things. I would be okay with the $25 first load. I can certainly coordinate with 4 or 5 of my neighbors all around me, and we could put out a load all at once and split that 4 or 5 ways. So I would be okay. Let me ask you a little bit about some of the, to me, and I know this, I won't speak for Mboka, but I know this is something he asked about last time too, and it's important to me, and that is this idea of how the priority of increasing efficiencies. And do you, David, do you or staff, do you need to hear clearly from the council the priority of increasing the efficiencies around brush pickup and bulk pickup? Or is simply us saying that we agree with your statement, is that enough?
I think it's always helpful for the council to mention that, because efficiencies will come in many ways. And as you know, a very high cost of this service comes in the labor, the
Sure.
equipment, the frequency. So I'm not trying to focus on anything, but we do think, if we're going to be more efficient, that means we've got to make sure the service we provide comes in at a lower cost. But that's where this summer we want to kind of experiment on some smaller areas of the city, and to see how the citizens, our customers, react to maybe some alternatives.
Well, I want to make sure that staff clearly has the backing, and that's clear to everybody in the room here right now, that I, again, won't speak for anybody but myself, increased efficiencies has to be the goal. No ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, we have to deal with the excessive labor costs associated with bulk pickup, and whether we do that by switching to more of an as needed or as called in basis. Um, perhaps that's one way. Yeah, I think the brush at no charge is appropriate. Perhaps we look at brush as a biweekly, maybe in every other week. Maybe those are just some options. I don't know. But so I won't get too much into the specifics of that, other than to say that increased efficiencies have to be a priority around the bulk and brush. We've increased the efficiencies around recycling and refuse, right? But now around
Yes.
brush and bulk, we have to do that as well. Um, and also too, I think, that I'll just, I'll leave it at that. But but again, if it would be helpful to staff, again, to just kind of hear perhaps more of a council consensus on increased efficiencies, again, I'll clearly say that's utmost of a priority for me. So thanks.
Alderman Lauer.
Just a couple additional things here. Certainly, David, I agree with you, and I think we need to support the boots on the ground. They're actually out there every day making it happen, because they certainly are working hard for what we have attained. And I think we can be very proud, and we should be very proud of how clean our city is. Um, there are some things that we could do. I'm not in favor of changing much of the program at all. I do think that we probably could be enforcing our current rules more strictly, and that would include charging for that second and third bucket, et cetera. I think that there are abuses, and that's one of the ways I don't think that we've really pushed to uh, make our program mimic exactly what we intended when we talked about this a year ago. Um, it is a problem that we should expect this to balance out as an enterprise fund. Clearly, I think that the brush and possibly even some of the bulk waste should be supplemented out of the general fund through our property taxation. And no, I don't want the property taxes to go up to mimic that. No. I think it should come out of the current program. There are many other areas that we should cut back first in the city, in our city services that are not as core as this. And I am concerned that if we would cut back on any amount of frequency, et cetera, that it might affect our property values. And that is regressive throughout the entire city because it affects our tax base. So I think we need to keep an eye on that as well. 1.5, maybe 2. I don't know where that level would be, David, but I don't have a problem with supplementing this program out of the general fund, right behind our public safety. I think that public safety, water, and solid waste, as well as our trash pickup, are core services. So I think we've got a lot of other places to look for efficiencies as well. The CART program, I think we're doing a great job. I think it's certainly there are areas that we could improve, but I think we set out a pretty good program last year, and I think we've got a good line of sight as far as that goes going forward. I will, however, ask that the citizens be more judicious about how they are handling and following the rules that we set out. There are a lot of abuses, and the neighbors tell us about it, and we all need to follow those rules, council members included. So one area that I think that may be abused a little bit more in the brush would be when somebody takes down a tree privately. Um, they may not actually be out hiring somebody to do that, but if it's a pretty good sized tree, I'm wondering if we shouldn't charge for additional fees to pick all that up if we're requiring the guys to do that. So thanks.
Okay. Alderman Black and Helm.
Thank you. And I think this conversation topic has been just as popular as the new Hy-Vee opening. So we've been hearing a lot about this. So we had our ward meeting last week, and we've received just countless emails about this. And I kind of want to start at a philosophical level and work my way down. From a philosophical level, what I'm hearing a lot from Ward 7 is this idea that people should pay for what they throw, right? So if I throw away more, I should pay more. And the other one that I'm hearing is that we should treat equals equally and unequals unequally. way, in the sense that we see that some property owners aren't using the bulk waste service whatsoever, but they're paying for it, and there's some concern about that. Additionally, I think that there's also concern about landlords, that you see properties that are rentals. I mean, 2/3 of my ward rents, so this is a major issue on the west side, and we need to be addressing kind of that turnover that just naturally occurs with rental properties, and how do we address that. I'm seeing a lot of, I want to make it very clear here as we go back to the drawing board, a couple emails have come in about privatizing the service. Not interested in that at all. I don't want that to happen. I don't even want to see it as a proposal. I get a couple of those folks out there, and that's just not something I'm interested in. I never hear anybody complaining about the services that they receive from our public service workers, and that should continue. What is missing for me as part of this is if I have a couch right now and I throw it away, what does that look like? And then what will it look like under a new program? We talk a lot about our fee structures. We talk a lot about our PowerPoint presentations, and it has this many trucks equals 11 workers and all that. That's great. It's good for the council. But I think most people want to understand, how does this impact me? Like they would understand, well, maybe I'm not throwing away a couch every 2 weeks. Maybe I can get behind this. Whereas when we present it, we can kind of draw some scenarios. So I would say, somebody who's, throwing away an old refrigerator, what does that look like? Somebody who has, extra Christmas presents come, that time frame, or spring cleaning. What does that look like? And I think that would help illustrate kind of what we're looking for when we present these different programs and scenarios. And I've mentioned before, I'm sympathetic to the idea that I don't know what a bucket looks like. If someone called me up and said, I want to throw away one bucket. What is that? I don't know. Because, even when it comes to couches, you have, couches that are small, couches that are large. Is it the big L ones? Is it the love seat? I don't know. And kind of maybe giving some more metrics to what that looks like. Obviously, no one's on board with the brush pickup as being a charge. That I'm not going to go on about that. $25, I mean, it's just as arbitrary as $50 in my mind. I'd be interested to see kind of how that plays out financially. On some of the in our projections. I think we should, and I'm sympathetic to Alderwoman Stearns' point about how do we enforce people, for illegal dumping. I don't know. I mean, if they do it at 2 in the morning, who's going to be out there patrolling? And do I want to take somebody out from downtown to go patrol for illegal dumping? No. But it's something that I think as we come back, we say, okay, we're going to be including an increase in some of the fines if we're going to be charging for bulk waste. Here's what it is now. Here's what it'll be after we're done. Just to send a clear message to the public that this isn't something that we want. We're taking it seriously. It's an unintended consequence. I respect Alderman Fruin's point about same cart fees across the board. I don't think that that's something that my ward would get behind, just because it's if I'm a retired person who's not producing much trash versus a family of say 4 or 5, that doesn't really add up, and I can be sympathetic towards those folks. So specifically, I hope I've given enough in terms of feedback. I think it should be. There's no reason for it, in my mind, to be an enterprise fund. I wasn't around 10 years ago when it happened. I don't presume to judge the council at that point, much like I hope someone 10 years from now doesn't judge us. But I think at this time we need to change it to be something that's at least subsidized. I've had people, even landlords, reach out and say, just raise my property taxes to pay for it even a little bit. I know that's a hot topic, but it's something that at least we should look at. What does that look like? But I think what we need most as part of this conversation are, what do these different scenarios look like? If I'm a landlord and I have somebody turning over every year, what's it going to cost me? If I'm a homeowner who throws away a couch every so often, what is that going to cost me? And those types of things, I think, would go a very long way in moving our program forward. Thank you.
And of the options, one thing could be, like if the council decided to do $25, as the administration recommended, we could conceivably have something, as we talked about before, is maybe a couple of free stickers a year, or one free sticker a season, or something to combine with that. So we're not one size
Right.
fits all.
And this is where, we kind of see our bridges between departments. We talk about this Bloomington app that we're doing. This could be something that, get involved, report in, bulk waste pickup and efficiencies. I mean, everybody's going to talk about that. Obviously, we're all on board with more efficiencies, and I think we need to get boots on the ground. HR Scott will say that on average, if an employee suggests a change to a process, it saves on average $7,000. So I'd love to hear kind of what they have to say and make that part of the conversation.
Alderman Howman, and then Alderman Milwambwe, if you're still on, I'm going to come back to you, see if you have any comments. We'll start with Alderman Howman.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start with kind of a philosophical statement first. If a city's purpose is to provide services for people that they couldn't get on their own, roads, police, fire, trash is something that we could say we're not going to do it. I'm not I'm not saying we should do that. I'm just saying that trash pickup is not a service that people could not procure on their own. Um, I like the fact that we do have city trash pickup. I think it helps keep our city clean and neat. Um, from the people that I've heard from and the people I've talked with, I know that there is a concern about dumping. So if people are going to take the time and the effort to dump out in the field somewhere, is there a place that they could bring that to the city? If they're going to find a pickup truck and go out in the dark of night, let's make it easier for them to come in and bring it to us, so that we're not getting that dumping. Um, so I guess what I'm wondering is that when Mr. Rasmussen talked about the trash a couple weeks ago or last week, he said there would be no cost savings in the giving people say 2 stickers a year for pickup and then charging for the rest. So I guess my feeling is if, and I don't have any idea what the numbers would be, Patty Lynn and David could probably look at those. I mean, if we increased everybody's trash bill $2 a month or whatever, and got away from the $25 for the first bucket. And I mean, I'm just trying to think of ways that we can um, not put ourselves in at such financial, not risk, but financial liability, but still provide a good service for our citizens.
Is that consistent with the kind of points that I think Alderman Black and Schmidt was saying, that whatever the it is, maybe make it simple,
Yeah, and that's
explore simplicity.
mhm,
Maybe we're not going to close all the gap, but we close it a little bit. And a little bit with what Alderman Fruin was saying. I think he was saying, hey, let's just do 25 for everything.
yeah,
There are some other issues with the 25 as some people
yeah,
don't put out as much, but something
right.
that maybe is clear and
Just
simple. And what we might have is maybe staff could present us several different models of what a simple solution would be.
Yeah.
And I believe I heard one to close the entire gap would be $75 a year in property taxes. Another might be a $2 increase in everybody's trash, but that doesn't close the whole gap or something. I mean, there could be things like that
Yeah.
staff might bring to the council
Yeah.
that they could decide on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a service we've come to expect.
Right. I mean, I think that's pretty clear from
Yeah,
everybody that
yeah.
we're saying.
But I just think it needs to be as simple as possible so that everybody understands it. We don't have to worry about what is the size of a bucket, a big bucket, a small bucket, a medium-sized bucket, you know. So whatever we can do to simplify it, even if it doesn't close that gap as much as we'd like to, at least for now, and then if we can find greater efficiencies, maybe look at it again.
I didn't mean to interrupt you as much as I was just trying to find some commonalities here that we can maybe give some direction to staff on. Before I go to a couple people who have spoken already, Alderman Milwamboy, are you still on the line? Mboka? Have we lost him? Scott, do you think he's there? Mboka, are you there, or did you take a bathroom break? Okay. Well, at this point, I will go to Alderman Sage and Fruin, who have spoken. Oh, excuse me. And,
I'm here.
oh, there you are. Okay. Well, you haven't spoken yet, so in our dwindling time on this riveting subject, we're going to let you speak before we go to people who've spoken already, and I'll ask the people who've spoken already to be very quick and as precise as possible. Yes, Alderman Wambwe. Thanks.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Well, first of all, let me say that I'm very happy that the brush is off the table. I don't think I've heard, I've ever heard from so many people about that. I also do appreciate David's attempt at compromise in his earlier remarks. However, what I do, my strong belief is that our solution resides in efficiency, and here is why. Because we've seen that people so far have gone to great lengths to avoid paying $3 for the extra bags. Okay, And I think for $25 or 50, they would do that much more. Some of the things that I've seen, for example, one, people have chosen a smaller can, right, garbage can. They've overstuffed their can. In other cases, they've passed their extra bag to the neighbor. Uh, Others have separated their trash between perishable and non-perishable so that, the following week they can put the non-perishable stuff in the bag. So in their can. So in my opinion, I do think we really need to um, look really hard at what those efficiencies could be, because to me it shows me that people are just not willing to pay 25 or $50. Um, and in that case, whatever we do, I'm of the mindset that we would face essentially the same issue. Um, and we would be still in the deficit because people are not reacting in the way that we hope that they would. So I do think we do have to spend a little bit more time on efficiency. And the other thing too that I wanted to say, I don't know that it is a good idea, to make a decision to set a fee and then work on efficiencies on the back end, because we don't know whether or not that's going to happen. So um, those are my thoughts at this moment. I don't want to repeat what others have said, and I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing what people are saying. Sometimes it comes in and out. I never thought that I would miss you guys so much, but I miss being there because I can't quite hear what's going on at times. But those are my thoughts for now.
Well, thank you, Mboka. Now we've actually are about out of our exhausted time, so I'd ask the repeat customers to be as succinct as possible. And I'm going to start with Alderman Fruin, then Stearns, and Sage.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll look for a nod one way or the other from Jim Karch that it's my understanding, just as a baseline understanding for all of us, that anything done by a private contractor, whether it's cutting down a tree or a remodeling project or whatever the case, it's my understanding that private contractors are to remove that debris at their expense. And, okay, nod yes. And so just to clarify that, I don't know how well we enforce that or don't enforce that, but we need to maybe reemphasize that. Private contractors take their stuff away.
Alderman Stearns.
One of the things I've also learned, I've talked to several of the gentlemen out on the street who actually do this, and I really appreciate that opportunity. I think we should all take the opportunity and use that opportunity to hear from them. Because of the enterprise fund, and this is just something that I believe I'm understanding, when the trucks are repaired or the trucks are, we have to do things mechanically, we take that expense for what it would cost, like a private, almost like a private sector. It's far more than it really needs to be if we just use the city fleet or the city gas or whatever. And I'm really concerned about that from the enterprise fund standpoint. That's a question I have. And the second one I have is, the second thing, respectfully want to just say that I think nothing could hardly be more core than refuse, because every single one of us uses it. If we're fortunate, we don't use the police. If we're fortunate, we use them because we have them. We know we have them. We want them, and the fire. But the refuse is near and dear to most of the homeowners' hearts, and they can't go out and just contract it. I mean, they really, really can't. Maybe wealthy people can. I don't know. I don't live out in subdivisions. But the people in the heart of Bloomington depend on this. They need this. This is absolutely core. And we need to, it's our responsibility and our contract, I think, with our citizens to provide it.
Okay. Alderman Sage.
Yeah, I'll be brief. First of all, my recollection is it was a council vote to switch this to an enterprise fund. This wasn't a staff decision. Council made that decision. And then I'm still a little bit concerned that the council may not have given staff sufficient guidance here. And if nothing else, I think philosophically, we owe it to staff to say, because there are kind of two competing philosophies here, right? There's the flat rate and there's the pay for what you use. And so I think we all owe David an answer to that question. I mean, Jim, you're pretty much a flat rate guy. I'm pretty much a pay for what you use. And so I think, all the aldermen, Scott seemed to suggest pay for what you use. If nothing else, I think we owe staff that bit of guidance as they start to work through some of these options.
And if in the interest of time, if that's okay, if we could ask people to, by the end of the week, please email what your specific, where you're coming from, any further ideas that you have as they're coming up with some possible scenarios for the future.
Yeah, I'm paying for what you use. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. Now we will move right along to item 6B. Now this is the public protection classification, and we have a 25 minutes budgeted here, and there's 10 minutes of that is presentation, and if necessary, then up to 15 minutes of question and answer. And so, Chief, I'll turn it over to you.
And Mayor, if I could,
I'm sorry,
I just
Mr.
want to
Hales.
make one brief comment. I think it is very appropriate that we celebrate a major milestone, and that is this. It is no small endeavor to change and improve your ISO rating, as hopefully you've seen. But I think this is kind of, again, a major milestone for the fire department, the water department, to have enabled us to achieve a very significant level of high performance, especially given that this is devoted to life and safety. So because of that, I wanted Brian just to go a little bit more in detail how we got there, what caused us to achieve this very high level of performance, and then allow the council to ask some questions and answers. So with that, Brian, we'll
Brian,
go
go
into your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, and City Manager. I appreciate this opportunity to share with you a little bit, and maybe explain a little bit better as to what ISO is, how we got to where we are today, and what kind of an impact it has on our community. I like this picture of this 1881 Bloomington Fire Department hook and ladder company. I thought that was kind of unique. Actually, my great-grandfather actually sold horses to the Bloomington Fire Department back numerous years ago, so I thought that was kind of interesting. One of the key contributing factors to public protection classification numbers came from the Great Fires in the late 1800s and the 1900s, early 1900s, as they saw a need to identify a community's risk for fire spread. So what is ISO? ISO stands for the Insurance Services Office. This is a private company. It was created from a merger of several underwriting companies in the early 1970s. There was multiple companies that had different fire suppression rating schedules that they were rating communities, but there was a lack of consistency. So the ISO, the Insurance Service Offices, created their fire suppression rating schedule, and it is the most widely used, currently is still the most widely used schedule for insurance companies use to help identify risk for communities. So the public protection classification system is a rating system from 1 to 9, with 9 being the lowest in firefighting capabilities, and a 1 being the highest. Currently, in 2014, there was only 750 communities that rated the Class 2. Of the 30,000 communities that they have rating schedules on, less than 18% have a 3 or less. So that tells a little bit about what that means to us from the fire department standpoint. The 3 things that are used in this fire suppression rating schedule, one is first receiving the alarm. So the communications department has had a part of that plan and had to answer questions and show policies and procedures that they utilize for their part of it. The fire department, they look at staffing, they look at stations, they look at apparatus and equipment. Our total deployment model, again, that's tied a lot to NFPA 1710, which we've talked about in the past. And then, of course, the water department hydrant system. water mains, the inspection, the care of, the maintenance, and the flow testing of the hydrants. All those come into consideration in the final number of the public protection classification number. So trying to find how exactly does it impact a resident or a commercial property is really difficult. I did a lot of research trying to find out a definitive answer as to what that is. The best that I could come up with, that moving from a 3 to a 2, that a residential property could see up to an 8% decrease in insurance premiums. That's not saying you're going to get an 8%. I don't want to misrepresent that. It's very difficult, especially when you get to commercial, because of internal fire suppression systems and that type. It's hard to put a number as to what type of a benefit. But it is from our standpoint, it's the commitment to our community as to what we support and feel about fire protection in our community. So it's a key point there. History a little bit. 1970s was the first rating that I could find of a 5. That was with Chief Roland Barons. So looking from 1970 to 1992, in 91 we built Station 4, added an engine company to our deployment model with an increase in our staffing. That helped get our minimum staffing up. And as a result, and again, this is just one of the key figures. There's other things involved in this, but one of the main things to move us from a Class 5 to a Class 4. In 2009, again, we were upgraded to a 3. Some history between those two periods. In 97, we opened Station 2, increasing from a single company station from McGregor, moved them out to Hamilton Street, and added another truck company. Increased our staffing again. And again, it gave us more firefighting capabilities, allowed us to have more firefighters for a deployment for an incident. And then in 2008, we changed that whole deployment model, where we made dedicated engine companies, dedicated truck companies. So each of those companies have a staff of 3, an officer, an engineer, and firefighter. And then our medic companies are staffed with 2 firefighters, which add to that deployment model and give us that critical number for our low risk, our middle or medium risk, and high risk occupancies. And again, that number for high risk occupancy is 29. You need to have 29 people available for that. What's our minimum staffing? Our minimum staffing is 29 currently. So we're right at that threshold. The other big key, at that point in time, we initiated the hydrant inspection program with the water department. So moving forward, 2015, what was the biggest issues that got us to the rating of a 2? Longevity of that hydrant testing program was a big one. Consecutive years of flow testing each and every hydrant, and the inspections with the care and maintenance. We developed the Hall Hazard Training Facility with building the training tower, increased use of multi-company drills, so the training has a lot to do with that. We developed the Command Training Center, where we're certifying all of our company officers and battalion chiefs. We developed the probationary task manual for probationary firefighters, so when they finish their probationary period, they have a higher skill set that is evaluated consistently for everyone as they come in the door. And then the big key was the last one, was the fire priority dispatch system. We use the same company's ProQA for EMS dispatch, and this allowed us to capture even more points in that communication part of receiving the alarms. So if you look at that breakdown, the alarm center or the comm center is getting, I believe, like 83% of the points available in their area. The water department is capturing over 90% of the points that they're available, and the fire department is capturing a little over 70% of the points available. So what is it that we need to do to maintain that Class 2 rating? Again, I think we need to make sure that we're focusing on that NFPA 1710 in terms of our staffing and our deployment. Again, some of those figures on our deployments based on having an engine company within a 1.5 miles of a property and a truck company from 2.5 miles to that property. So again, as you reach our outlying districts and our fringe areas, we have a hard time meeting that standard. We need to support that current staffing model because, again, we're at that minimum staffing at 29, which is direct correlation to that high hazard occupancy. And then our current training hours. Again, it's difficult to get those training hours up to where you can capture all those points. And with our response that we're going on, all the number of calls that we go on every year, it's making it more and more difficult for us to keep individuals in training classes and capture all those training hours. I showed a week ago at the budget planning meeting how we'd increase those numbers about 10%, but yet it's hard to keep doing that and improving on that. And then again, we need to maintain the hydrant inspection program and keep it and do a good job with the repair and maintenance of the hydrant system that we currently have. I get asked, what would it take to be a number one? Again, if you look at those points, we're capturing most of the points available to us with the water system, 85% of the points with the communication system. So really the only places we have that we can improve on is looking at NFPA 1710, and that's stations, equipment, and staffing. Again, we need to increase those training hours. Those are all things that were also recommended in the iChief's report as well. So at this point in time, I'll entertain any questions that anyone might have.
Almost on time. Good. So questions, comments? We've got a little bit of time budgeted from the council. I just want to say, of course, obviously, congratulations again. This is just fantastic. And to our, yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I definitely want to make sure that, I'm passing this along to Darren Wolf.
Well, he was beaming the whole time. I saw him, so I know.
Water Department. I asked him to stay up here for my support here. I appreciate it.
Okay. Alderman Sage.
Yeah, and thanks, Mayor, for pointing that out because, and I've said this before, one of the things that I saw the first couple of years I was here before David got here was I didn't always see the collaboration across department lines. It was plain as the nose on my face, right? And so one of the things that I've always take the opportunity to highlight and acknowledge is when I see those cross-departmental lines, and we just see them so much more now. And so again, thanks for being willing to acknowledge that and echo what the mayor said. I mean, congratulations. It's an outstanding achievement.
Thank you.
Thanks. Alderman Black.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief. Congratulations. This is fantastic. One of the things I kind of want to circle back on is this idea of, when we talk about priority-based budgeting and some of the challenges that we're going to be facing in 2015 and beyond, fiscal year 2016 and beyond, is this response time issue. And I'm wondering if at some point down the road, maybe it's a committee of the whole topic, 6 months from now, is that we put together some concrete strategies and kind of the cost of those strategies to get us to that one, or to keep and maintain the level that we're at. Because I think we need to have that community conversation about where do we want to be with our fire service, what's that going to cost us to get there? Because a lot of this stuff, people kind of take it for granted, which is unfortunate. And I think begin that conversation now as opposed to under the guise of the gun of the budget, that's better, so we're better prepared to discuss that and make smarter choices. So congratulations again.
Thank you. And Alderman Hammond.
Thanks.
Alderwoman Hammond.
Chief Moritz, this is good information. You mentioned that there was a possibility of reducing homeowners insurance. Is there any way to quantify that?
I spoke with some people in the insurance industry, and again, that comes through underwriting, and they take a look at those, and then my understanding is it usually takes about a year before that ever develops. Mm-hmm. Again, not all insurance companies use the ISO, the rating number, but again, it has to do, it is affected nonetheless because market share in that business, if one company is doing better because of selling more insurance at a lower rate, it would affect others. But I don't have a concrete answer, and I can't tell you how long it would take for an individual to see that kind of a change.
I just did a quick number, and that would be like $84 a year for me, and I'm thinking if you could put $84 a year into training and some of the other areas it would need to maintain or even improve the ISO rating, that'd be money well spent. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, congratulations again, Chief. And Brent. Moving right along, Mr. Boyle, I think you're here to present item 6C. One word, Uber. Now, just as an FYI, I think there's a typo on our schedules here. It says 20 minutes, 10-minute presentation, 20-minute discussion. I think it was meant to be 10-10, but obviously I'm not going to yank us. We may need to begin to discuss some of these issues. And Mr. Boyle, you have the floor.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor. What I'm going to talk about is our efforts at a proposed ordinance that would allow for operation of transportation network companies like Uber and Lyft. The transportation network companies are defined under the state statute as companies that use a digital network or software application service to connect passengers to transportation network drivers. I'd like to give you a little bit of background as to where we currently are with regard to our present ordinances and regulations, and then a little bit about the state law, which you should have a copy of that. That will be in effect in June. I'd like to move on then to some issues that are raised.
Just to clarify, that's June 30th, is that correct, Mr. Board?
June 1st.
June 1st is, I'm sorry. Okay, so June 1st. Thank you.
So after discussing that state law, I'm going to talk about a few of the issues that are raised by that law when we contemplate having some of this newer form of transportation network added to our existing transportation network. The City of Bloomington regulates taxi cabs and vehicles for hire in the Bloomington Normal area pursuant to an intergovernmental agreement. And the goals of that regulation are safe, reliable, affordable, and accessible transportation. The ways that we attempt to ensure that are by assuring responsibility and accountability of the companies that provide the service and the drivers that provide the service. So to that end, we license taxi cab companies and their drivers. As part of this licensing, owners and their drivers undergo criminal background checks. Drivers are also checked for their driving records or driving history. Vehicles are checked twice annually. We have 56 vehicles that are inspected by a state-certified garage and by the Bloomington Police twice a year. And insurance is required in case of accidents. There are a couple other components as well. The companies are required to perform service 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And as part of this regulatory system, rates are fixed among the companies. Now, we're able to enforce that by sanctioning licensees through taking away their license or suspending them, or through fining them if they don't have some of these basic requisites, or if they fail to follow the rules that apply to other companies. In December, the Transportation Network Providers Act was signed into law, and as I said before, that takes effect June 1st. The Act defines Transportation Network Company as an entity operating in the state that uses a digital network or software application service to connect passengers to transportation network company services provided by transportation network companies. The definition goes on to say that a TNC, which is the acronym using there for Transportation Network Company, is not deemed to own, control, operate, or or manage the vehicles used by TNC drivers, and is not a taxi cab association or a for-hire vehicle owner. The Act defines a TNC driver as an individual who operates a motor vehicle that is, 1, owned, leased, or otherwise authorized for use by the individual, and 2, is not a taxi cab or a public for-hire public carrier vehicle, and 3, is used to provide transportation network company services. There are various things and issues that are raised by the Act, but let me say that ostensibly, one of the first good things is that the Act requires the transportation network companies to have insurance that covers a situation when their drivers do not. It also provides for the transportation network companies to require individuals seeking to be drivers to submit an application that relates their driving history. The drivers have to perform criminal background checks of their drivers. They have to require the drivers to have insurance that comports with the requisites of the Act. So the Act initially looks good from a public safety and reliability point of view in that it's having a private entity that is ostensibly going to benefit from this transportation network, from providing this service, do many of the things that we have to do as a governmental entity in terms of regulation. But there's some problems with the act, and one of them is that there is no system in the act of monitoring whether these things are being done by the companies. And it's important when talking about this that this is not, I know on the agenda it said Uber, but it's not really just about Uber. I mean, we're writing an act that's going to cover a lot of companies. It may be the size of Uber, and it might be a smaller company. It could ostensibly be a rather small local company. Similarly, we're looking at regulating or being involved in regulating transportation provided by companies of various lengths of business experience with various possibilities of compliance and non-compliance and with various types of history. So this is not really just about Uber or assessing what Uber is doing and what Uber may do. It's about coming up with looking at a particular statutory framework, a particular technological possibility, and seeing how we can best assure that our goals towards particularly public safety are being met. So as I said before, there's not a basis for monitoring in the Act. One of the things that we want to do with our ordinance is to use our home rule authority to perhaps provide for some monitoring ability. Secondly, there's not a consequence in the Act if the companies or the drivers fail to perform as required in the Act. To some degree, somewhat unusual. I mean, that usually when there's an Act that says you should do this, you shall do this, you shall do that, there's something that says, first of all, there's usually a monitoring mechanism, or at least often, and then there's often some kind of penalties if you don't do them, but those aren't there in the Act. And so in drafting or in consulting and looking around towards what's something that we can do that will address the public concerns of the citizens of Bloomington and Normal, we are looking at ways of being able to provide for consequences. So again, going back to this idea of responsibility and accountability. There are also some issues with respect to insurance as required under the Act. Very often when a private person has insurance and then they start to give a ride for commercial purposes, there's an insurance gap. Similarly, when someone has commercial insurance, there can be some gaps involved in their private coverage and acting under that. So we have some insurance requirements in our potential ordinance that we're looking at that will assure that there is going to be some coverage. In seeking to address these concerns and several others, I'm trying to stay within our time parameters here and allow time for questions. The city's staff have had several internal discussions as to what we should do and how we can best accomplish it with our existing resources. We've had a good deal of discussion with our counterparts with the town of Normal. We've reached out and spoken with people in some of the industries involved and also with our counterparts in other municipalities. We've looked at other ordinances.
And just as for the council's record, excuse me, George, is that Mr. Karpus is in the audience from Normal, just
Well, then I'll say good things about him. I'm just getting to the part about Wayne Karpus, actually. But, yeah.
Our meetings are a little longer than your council's, I bet.
So, when we look at the how other cities are handling this, and this is somewhat of a new, situation with the new state law and so forth. And the Chicago ordinance, for example, was passed in February of 2014. The Chicago ordinance regulates these companies a great deal, from fingerprinting, the company higher ups, to requiring a brick and mortar place of business in the city, to having all sorts of records retention, and other things like that. The Springfield ordinance, by contrast, doesn't have very much. It regulates very minimally the transportation network companies, doesn't really do a lot with respect to the drivers. nor with respect to certain, say, consequences or penalties. We're looking for some kind of a middle way, and I think we're getting there. We want to assure public safety, and we want to assure the reliability of our transportation network and the affordability of our network. We also want to be fair to those companies that are operating in the community by the taxi cab and vehicle for hire rules that are submitting to the things that our ordinance presently requires. So what we're looking for here is some direction as to whether this is something we're interested in, as to whether, and maybe a little bit about the type of regulation, although we've looked into a lot about that. What we would propose is that staff continue to work diligently with the town of Normal and the very special Mr. Wayne Karplus to work diligently with the town of Normal toward drafting an ordinance that we also reach out to prospective TNC companies and to the taxi cab and vehicle for hire companies to get their input, to draft an ordinance and bring it before the council at the April 13th meeting. We're in some uncharted territory here. I think to try to rush it for next week is going to bypass a lot of channels of good input and perhaps get us an ordinance that is faster than we want and may ultimately end up taking a lot more time because it is faster than what we want.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. And then I just wanted to also clarify that Mayor Coos and I have had discussions about this going back to the U.S. Conference of Mayors last June, and they have had panels at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And one of the things that pretty much everybody in the industry says is the version of what you see as Uber is going to be how we handle any sort of for-profit transportation, private transportation in the future. And so taxi cabs and Uber model will tend to converge. The question is obviously right now, they've got this state statute that doesn't really provide much, as Mr. Boyle said, for regulation. And I haven't talked to all the council members, but generally the extent to which I think maybe just briefly touching base with Jim, in one voice and others, it seems we don't have the staffing perhaps to be anywhere near as burdensome and intense in terms of regulation as Chicago, but then Springfield seems to have done almost nothing. So we certainly would want to do something. And Mayor Chris Coos is involved in this. His council, feels that we should do something with respect to insurance, background checks, public safety, some general things. So that's kind of what we're looking at this point in terms of council reactions. And I'm going to start with Alderman Black.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mayor, and George, that was interesting. And I guess my question would be, if we do nothing right now, what happens? Is this going to suddenly we are there, Uber will come in or Lyft will come in and then we have to allow it? Or I guess I'm not clear about that.
Well, first of all, the state law that allows for Uber to operate legally takes effect June 1st.
Sure.
And in the absence of any ordinance that allows for it, the closest thing it resembles is a cab, because our ordinance presently says a cab is
right.
A vehicle for hire or a vehicle that is available for hire to drive a passenger upon not regularly established routes. So there is not anything that can require us, once the state statute kicks in, I think it becomes the default law.
Sure.
I think the things we do above and beyond that can be done through home rule. I don't think we want to do, as the mayor I think was saying, anything that is, overly burdensome. I think one thing we want to keep in mind is that if we go entirely towards self-regulation of the companies, we may very well find that there could be very little regulation at all. So I think we want to, what staff is trying to do here is cope with the technological changes and also deal with the state.
Just on that note, I think as Mr. Boyle and I had chatted and mayors of other cities and talked to Mayor Coos briefly this afternoon, was that if you put the burden on the drivers to make sure that they have gone through the background check, and so we don't then have to have the enforcers. If you want to drive for Uber, fine. You come bring our clerk or whatever, enforcement mechanism, you come to us and you prove that you have passed a background check. We make sure that Uber takes care of the insurance. I mean, there are any number of ways we don't have to make this that burdensome, but still protect the public, I guess. I'm sorry to interrupt your time.
Actually, that was going to be one of my questions. So, okay. And I guess number two is that I can pull up Uber right now on my phone, and there are people that are currently using the service. What are we doing in relation to that? Are we going to be trying to pull these people over? I mean, they give you a GPS on where they are right now, so enforcement wouldn't be too challenging.
Well, first of all,
I think the police have said that they're really not going to do that. I mean, enforce it unless we have real clear information and a complaint, right, Mr. Boyle?
well, any kind of information that involves law being broken is something that could be passed on to the police, and the police will investigate it, given their resources, and act upon it, given what else they have to allocate their resources toward, and that's a police department call, not really the legal department.
Yeah, and to that point, I don't know if I want to be devoting police resources to pulling over Uber drivers, but I think it behooves us to do something, and because this isn't something that we can just ignore, and it'll go away. And I don't think the people who are participating in the program are reading our ordinances to the letter to figure out what it is that they're doing. So, yeah, I'm anxious to see what comes out in the April meeting.
And just to clarify, if we did nothing as of June 1st, it wouldn't be illegal.
That's correct.
Because of the state law. So
they're already here.
Protect our public.
A bunch of drivers, and I mean, I've never used Uber, but I know people that do and swear by it, and I know people that it's their only mode of transportation.
We did on the One Voice. Yeah. In fact, I think one of the cabs, well, not cabs, one of our trips to the transportation department, I believe, whatever, was Uber, and it's seamless in terms of who comes.
But that wasn't in Bloomington, was it, Mayor?
No, this is in Washington, D.C.
For purposes of clarification.
No, just to clarify, we were not violating our ordinances. Alderwoman Howman, and then Alderman Sage.
Thank you. Scott asked my one question. But I have another question. Would there be, or can there be a fee to operate a TNC?
Well, that's what you decide. Yeah.
That's what I'm asking. So we could impose
Absolutely.
a fee to do that.
That's correct. It would be an administrative fee, and not too dissimilar from what we're doing for taxi cabs. Okay. In fact, some of the things that we would do, we're hoping to modify the taxi cab portion as well to make them, rather commensurate. One of the things, as the mayor talked about, is perhaps, now that there is so much digital information available, it is possible to have drivers get background checks and bring them in from nationally accredited organizations, rather than, say, having the police go through extensive investigations and so forth, like might have been done in the past.
Two anecdotal, one in the Chicago Tribune, they talked about cab drivers a year ago were highly incensed about Uber coming in, and now they've said, hey, it's okay, it hasn't taken business away from us. And the other is, I've been stuck at the airport because nobody answered the cab number, and at midnight it's not really pleasant to be standing out in front of the Central Illinois Regional Airport, stranded. So I've had that happen both at the airport and at the transportation center, coming in on the Peoria charter bus late at night. So I'm not sure how I would feel about taking Uber, but if a cab isn't coming my way, I might be more inclined to try Uber.
Don't call me at midnight, though.
Well, I can't call my husband because he doesn't hear the phone, so I'm pretty much stuck.
Alderman Sage.
Just when you were talking about Uber in D.C., I had an image of 6 of you in a Pinto buzzing Pennsylvania Avenue there, and I'm sure.
No. It was like, big SUV.
Oh no, of course, yeah.
No, it was nice.
That was. So George, and I know you've been doing this for a long time, right? So just refresh my memory, right? I mean, part of the reason we have taxis is we want to go door to door. Right. So we know we need that service in the community. I think when the shuttle line started coming online, there was, I think, a time or two where they started trying to do some door-to-door drops as well, and we kind of had to step in and say, no, if you want to do like a downtown Bloomington to uptown Normal or something like that, you can. But we're gonna kind of guard that door-to-door service for the taxis, right? So my concern is that if we don't continue doing what you're doing, and what you're doing is reasonable, right? There'll be a group of folks who will say, well, the city is, the city is afraid of introducing competition into the transportation market. And so we want to be reasonable, but there'll be some of those same voices that if something happens with an Uber and there's not liability protection, there's not insurance, well, they'll say, well, city, you should have known better. You shouldn't have let that happen. So you're trying to find that common sense, common ground that is reasonable, right? And so that's what I hear you saying, and so I appreciate you kind of, moving in that direction. Okay.
That's correct. We're trying to strike the kind of balance that you just alluded to.
I think you've got general direction, but as on solid waste, if you've got some specific ideas, would you email Mr. Boyle by the end of the week of specific things you would like to include? And then, but keep in mind though, we do need to do with our intergovernmental pals in Normal as we're, make sure that we keep in touch with them as we go forward. Okay? Thank you so much, Mr. Boyle. Appreciate your help. Thank you. And moving forward to item 6D, formation of Downtown Signage Committee. We have 15 minutes budgeted. That is a 5-minute presentation and then about 10-minute question and answer. Mr. Karch.
Mayor, I'm going to excuse myself. I need to get to a visitation, so.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much.
If you can get along without me, I'll try to move on.
We will try. Thank you, Alderman Fruin. You can watch this online if you'd like.
Let me just, as Jim's getting that ready, tonight we're just asking the council if you agree conceptually that the formation of a downtown signage committee would be beneficial. We would, if that answer is yes, we'd like to bring back a resolution so that the council and the members of this committee would be very clear as to what it is the council wants them to do, how long it is we want them to do it in, and maybe anything else that's appropriate. We see this as an ad hoc committee that be formed, they do their work, and then disband. But I've asked Jim to just take a few minutes and show what has been some of the discussion and this whole topic of downtown signage and what could it include, not include. So let's go to that first. Jim?
Thank you, City Manager Hales. Mayor and City Council, it's a 3-slide presentation, the favorite kind, ones you get through quickly. The vision statement for Bloomington starts off, Bloomington 2025 is a beautiful, family-friendly city with a downtown, the heart of the community and great neighborhoods. A lot of the focus of this committee that we've talked about is really dealing with this facet of how do we make downtown the heart of the community. The difficulty is finding where you're going. I mean, that is one of the things they talk about. It's a just base one no-brainer that they say, whenever you go to some place to the downtown with the amenities that you have, the Bloomington Center for Performing Arts, the Coliseum, all the different places. We have a museum that's increasing and expanding, our Route 66 tourist center. So with all of those kind of, how do you find your way to parking places? How do you find your way to get there? So this is as this downtown signage, downtown traffic committee started looking at best management practices. The easy solution was let's create an ad hoc committee so people can try to find, they said, where should those destinations be? How we like to be part of it. This gets people involved. This gets the people who care about the downtown engaged. They want to be part of the discussion. So we want to make this comfortable, convenient, easy for people to find. That is the goal. So what are they trying to get out of this? This should be very simple. They're going to be trying to determine what destinations to highlight. What are going to be the goals? Where are we trying to get people? And then the big thing is going to be, what should the signage look like? How do you make it MUTCD compliant, which is in the right of way and enforceable and easy to follow? We've seen other communities when it's not MUTCD compliant, it can come into some concerns. How do you make it pretty, nice, and then also make it easy to find? So those are some of the things they're going to do, and then they're going to then try to get some costs, and they're going to bring that back to the council. So it is our hope that with your approval, we'll bring this back to the council in a form that you can approve.
Actually, I just noticed on one of those, I saw South Hill, and I know where that is.
Yeah.
Where's the lakefront? Just kidding. Actually, I do have to say, when we go through our downtown, lots of times people have said, why don't you have a sign like public parking, because they're
what they've talked
is
about.
making it clear. And then a lot of our attractions aren't labeled. But I actually found one place that's worse, and that was Montgomery, Alabama. I would think, if you had the international home of the civil rights movement at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, you had a Rosa Parks Museum, you had the Southern Poverty Law Center, and Jefferson Davis, different Davis, Jefferson Davis, that you'd have something other than downtown sites exit 162. I kid you not, that was what it was. Downtown sites exit 162. Anyway, we can do better than Montgomery, Alabama.
And that's the goal of the committee, yes, the ad hoc committee.
Alderman Howman.
Thanks. Jim, quick question. Would this just be within the city of Bloomington, or would this include signage from the interstate directing people?
I like the question. That's actually been one of the discussion points of, is this just something that you start with the downtown if you find something that's workable, because you do want to get people off the interstates, you do want to get people off Veterans Parkway. But then also there's also some thought as if this is uniform enough, is this something that can be spent? It's not just, the downtown is wonderful in the heart of the community, but we have other places in the community as well that people want to get to. So if there's some consistency, we also have the ability to expand that. So great question. Yes, that's going to be part of the potential recommendation.
But the second part of that question is if it would include signage from the interstate, do we work with the town of Normal so that there's, again, some consistency in how we present ourselves?
If that were directed, David, would you like to respond to that?
I'd just add that, both cities have gone to IDOT. You've seen, especially these brown signs. I think that's traditionally what the Visitors Bureau will work with us on, and they'll work with either one, individually or together. So certainly we can have that collaboration, that discussion, but I think it's key that first we start, I would suggest first from what you want downtown, what needs to be identified, out on the interstate coming in, and then how do we help people get around downtown with wayfinding signs, et cetera.
And then Chris Keese and I have been in touch with IDOT for quite a while, once we knew we were getting the grant for the funding gap for the Route 66 Visitor Center to help redirect people from the interstate through both Bloomington and Normal for the old Route 66 sites and something like that. And then maybe even doing Route 66 paint, along the interstate, on the street itself.
Yeah.
They have those near Pontiac. I'm sorry. Alderman Sage and then Schmidt.
Yeah, just a quick question. I know, Jim, I think I'm recalling that we had just a real quick conversation about this, or I saw something in an email. I mean, I think we need to be prepared for some sticker shock, right, on some of the costs for some of this signage, right? And I know that's a little bit further down the road.
It's a good question, though. And I think that as with anything, I think it's always important to tie these type of things into some of the strategic plans that we presented to you. And in November of 2013, there was a downtown Bloomington strategy. And that was done and prepared for the DBA, the Downtown Business Association. But it does this is one of the components. And this is one of the recommendations that came out of that strategy. And so in following up your question, once they determine the extent of where it is, that is correct. Our own crews can do all this work as well, which
right,
makes it important.
But I mean, we ought not be surprised if this starts to get to six figures real fast, right?
It is always amazing how different recommendations the cost can spike up quickly. But what will happen, and thank you, you're correct, they'll have to be taken in context with all the other needs, but you'll have a recommendation to consider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Schmidt and then Stearns.
I just want to recognize that the Downtown Bloomington Association has done a lot of work on this already, and they have a recommendation, and I don't want to marginalize their work or sort of overlay their work. So whatever they've done, I hope that they're at the table if we're going to do this, because they've already put the sweat into the game.
Absolutely.
They've been a key stakeholder throughout the entire process.
Okay. Alderwoman Stearns.
So this is obviously an ad hoc volunteer group that would meet. Is that correct? So there would obviously be no cost until they came up with their undoubtedly six-figure recommendation. But anyway, how would we select the members of this committee?
What we'd recommend is that the mayor appoints, and he could, just like some of the other, bring back those names, which would be part of the resolution as to who the mayor is appointed to serve on this committee. The council could approve that by resolution.
Did the council suggest some people? Could the council make some suggestions?
Oh, I certainly.
Council suggests people all the time to me. Sure. Anything else? Okay. All righty. Thank you so much. All right. We move on to our last topic of the evening, the My Bloomington Request Management System. Craig?
Mayor, I think this is a very exciting little topic. As I got a preview of this, we wanted to come and just help give the council a preview of a project that staff has been working on. It's still in the early stages, but Scott, do you want to start off and then Craig? Okay.
Just 20 seconds, thank you, City Manager, to help introduce Craig. Craig Macbeth is the city's webmaster. Many of you have had interaction with Craig already. He's worked on a couple of communication committees and such for you. He's one of our unsung heroes in my department, to be perfectly honest. Craig makes a lot of technical things happen in the background. I appreciate it. It's been a while ago, but with some direction from council and from administration, we started looking at these types of mobile apps that would increase communications with city between citizens and the city, and with certain direction and certain requirements, we wanted to certainly have some of these things that made it easy for folks to communicate with us, but it also needed to have an integration component with some existing systems, Munis, for example, those sorts of things. So we've got a solution, and it's right now. Craig has worked long and hard with Nora Dukowitz and Jim Karch and his staff to create what we would call a pilot program right now. And of course, it is a pilot at this point. We're learning with it as we go and how best to implement. But Craig's got a great presentation here and has done a good job putting that pilot together and doing testing. So, thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, City Manager and Mayor and Council. Just wanted to show you a little bit on the public-facing side of what we call public stuff. Public Stuff is the company that we've contracted with that handles the software that's behind the scenes with this. We've branded that solution to My Bloomington. My Bloomington is, again, the public side to it. We also have an internal side where we can do and do some internal work orders and talk about some things there. But just, real excited to show you about this. Let me go into it. And what is My Bloomington? My Bloomington really is just a digital communication system for improving access to city services. And it's nothing more than helping automate some of the things that we're already doing. We're already taking phone calls. We're already taking emails. This provides another avenue for citizens to be able to reach out and engage with the government and with the city. Makes it simpler and more rewarding for citizens to improve their community and provides the city with an efficient method to communicate with residents and resolve issues. Big sentence there, but really it provides that app, that feel, something they can touch and feel and look at and see what the progress is and where they're going with it. Why, again, My Bloomington, it builds on our transparency initiative. It's transparency is more than just what our score is on the website. It's also, about building trust with the community and having the community be able to see what we're doing and all the projects that we have going on and all the service requests that are coming in. So if they can see that, hopefully that starts building some more trust within the community and with the city. It allows us to be part of that conversation. Again, we've delved into the social media channels a couple years ago, and that's been tremendous with the help of Nora on that, and really just taken off with especially the police and fire and city. Being part of that, engaging with citizens and letting them know that we're doing these different things and be able to communicate back and forth. It allows us to communicate policies. A lot of times it's not always easy to find certain policies on our website or procedures on how to do certain things, and this just kind of helps build that gap or fill that gap in there where somebody's going onto the app and they can see a pothole, but then immediately they see information about our policies on pothole replacement, what are our time frames, things like that, to keep them more informed. It allows us to get information out quicker. We can send out notifications and get those changes out, as soon as pothole season comes around, which is very quickly here, if not already here. We can get any kind of specific changes out there. If we've got bulk waste that's starting to back up because we have snowplow, snow emergencies, and we're doing extra snowplow work, we can inform the citizens that, sorry for the delay, but we've got our crews working the streets right now to clear the streets. We'll get on bulk waste, as soon as we can. Those are just some some of the benefits on why we're moving to My Bloomington. So what do citizens see? What kind of services are they going to get from this My Bloomington app? First of all, they're going to be able to report issues. Right now, we're working specifically with Public Works. We're piloting with Jim and his department and focusing on Public Works related issues. So you're going to see potholes, garbage issues, street lights, clogged inlets, things like that. We'll quickly probably be moving into community development, starting working on code enforcement issues and putting some of those request types in there as well. So they're going to be able to report those certain issues. They're going to be able to access the information, the knowledge base, see what kind of status is on their certain requests that they've provided, see any news and other contact information that we have on our website. The nice thing about the app is it's really just another portal or another way to get to information on our website as well through the use of various widgets that we can create and customize. Again, the knowledge base, it's completely maintained, by the city, so we can easily provide the latest information out there. When someone's going in and pulling up a service request for potholes, like I said, you're going to see information about potholes, whereas if you're going to pull up a request on garbage, missed garbage pickup, you'll see some of the policies on garbage and things like that. So great stuff there. One of the other features that we have with this is instant translation, so we're going to have access for everyone, including non-English speaking residents. So it seamlessly translates Spanish back to English and back and forth, so that way the citizens and the city can communicate. It utilizes Google Translate, which is a feature that we currently use on our website, so it's already utilizing existing technology there. Some of the staff side tools is we're going to have workflow built into this. So again, like I said, right now we're getting emails, we're getting phone calls, and those phone calls need to be routed, and those requests need to be routed manually. What we can do with the system is we can build in certain workflows per request type. So if someone requests, a certain service, that request would always go to a certain person or so forth. And we can build as many steps in there as we need to that makes it the most efficient for our side. With that, all the data that goes into it, we have complete customization on the reporting tools. Residents can see some of that data. They'll be able to see data that's around them, what requests are in the area. It's all accurate, it's all current, it's all real time. So really, really neat stuff there. We've also talked with our Citizen Inquiry Task Force about possibly giving alderman access to the system, so you can actually pull up and view any activity that's in your ward and see specifically, what's going on and what things are overdue, which ones are due or coming due. We have mapping tools built in with our Esri integration, so you can see exactly where those service requests are at. You can pull up maps. We can do work order reports for bulk waste pickup. Someone requests a bulk waste pickup, we can print out a worksheet and shows them everything, everywhere they need to go. I'll quickly go through just some of the screenshots of what a citizen might see using the mobile app side. This service does have a web-facing page, but it also has mobile apps for Android, iOS, BlackBerry, mobile, Windows Mobile. So the first screen here is just your initial sign-up screen. You can choose to sign up, create an account. What that allows you to do is get notifications via email and through the app. You can sign up with Facebook if you have a Facebook page, or you can skip the process if you want to remain anonymous. Certain request types, as we set them up, may require some contact information. It kind of depends on the service request, but again, we can do that per service request. The next one is our landing page for the My Bloomington app. The first thing you'll see here is the new request button. And then below that starts our widgets. You can't really see all of them, but if you were to swipe up on the app, you would see certain widgets as far as the news and the calendar, nearby requests, contact information, things like that. Again, we can customize that, at will whenever we want to. We have full control over that. And then going into, if we were to click on that new request button, we would see certain categories. And we try and categorize these service requests to kind of make them as easy to get to as possible. The goal is so the citizens don't need to know what department something's in. They just need to know logically, I need to go to Public Works or sewers or streets, and get the full list there. So we're going to go through a little service request for potholes. So when someone clicks on streets and sidewalks, they would see a pothole service request. It would take them to the next screen because a pothole does require a location, obviously. So we'd like to get that information. Someone can actually type in the address, or based on the phone's GPS, it'll pinpoint them on the map, and then they can fine tune it and move it to exactly where that pothole's at. Once they click OK, it's going to ask them any additional information that we prompted them for. Potholes are pretty simple. We ask for a picture maybe if you want to, or any additional description that may be pertinent. You can certainly add that. You can check to see if it's visible to residents or not. Again, these are all things that we can customize per service request. So they would hit submit. They would get a request submitted confirmation screen that gives them an issue number and ask them if they want to submit another issue. It'll also get an email if they registered on the system. They'll get an email confirming that we've got your service request. Again, here's your service request number. Click that link and it'll show them this screen right here. This is the screen on the mobile app. But it shows them that it was submitted, where it was at. They would see any comments that the city staff have provided. Anytime that city staff updates the status of a service request, they'll get another email or another notification through the app that lets them know that something's being done with that, as well as if it's being closed. The nice thing about it is you can have bidirectional communication with the citizens. So if there's any additional information the citizens want to reply or provide, they can certainly do that, and we can go back and forth and request additional information if need be. And that's really about it. It's coming soon. Scott touched on it a little bit. We've been working on it for a little while. We actually purchased the software in November. We developed the app and had it published by December 31st of last year. And then shortly after the first year, we began working with Public Works and the Citizen Inquiry Task Force to start ramping up on the Public Works side of things. So we're hoping to do some beta testing here later this spring, and then probably midsummer, hopefully release it out and let it go.
Thank you very much, Greg. We're going to go ahead and start out with Alderwoman Painter and Alderman Sage.
Thank you very much for that presentation. It was informative. I am wondering, I have heard some interest in using an app like this to figure out which streets have been plowed in the wintertime. Could this app be used to do that as well? Could you expand it?
Probably not to the aspect that you're thinking about. We do have the Google Map feature where it shows snow districts and gives them basically one of three statuses: if they've started, if they're working, or if they've been completed. To get that down to a street level is a lot more complex. We have looked at other solutions with, again, Google Maps and kind of driving some data that way. But this app really doesn't drive that data. It's more of a service request. There's probably something that we can look at doing that maybe gives me or gives the citizens a little more granular look at where we're going with it, but probably not to that aspect. I will find. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Sage?
And I think I know the question of this because I know how Public Works approaches things. But I'm assuming from a cost-benefit analysis, we're trying to figure out kind of what the cost is to handle the citizen emailing, the citizen phoning, that type of thing. So we have kind of a back office cost, if we will, for that, as opposed to what we would spend on the software as well. And I see you guys shaking your heads. That's all I needed to know. But I'm assuming then as we move forward, we'd hear a little bit more about that, right?
Yeah, and again, the nice thing is we can completely customize service requests individually, so we can, put in some calculated costs there if we wanted to, and be able to spit out spreadsheets that show you, estimated costs of labor and things like that, should we choose to enter that information in. One of the nice features, and really the selling point for going with public stuff, is its proven integration with our Tyler Munis product.
There we go.
So this will feed the work order system within Tyler Munis, which will do a much better job of calculating labor costs and materials. And
answered my second question before I asked it. Thank
you. It's gone well when that happens. Yeah. Alderman Black.
Thank you, and thank you. Wonderful presentation. This is fantastic, and this is, I have big ideas for this thing. I think we all do, and thinking about street level plowing or other types. I mean, I know many municipalities do different things, newsletters. One of my goals would be to have like an email list. Like if the street's closed, you just get an alert if you live in that neighborhood. I mean, we're doing a good job of press releases. There's a lot of good things that can come from it. And one question that that Alderman Sage had brought up that I wanted to touch on is that you didn't quite get there, but it was like if I want to make a complaint about a pothole and I do it 100 times because I want that pothole to be fixed through this app, people are still doing that via the Public Works email or phone calls. So can you speak a little bit to what would the app do in that case if I want to submit something, say, 20 times?
Yep. What the app does have is, again, per request type, we have the ability to turn on duplication detection. So for a pothole, we would want to turn that duplication on and maybe give it a 25-meter radius. And so anytime someone tries to report a pothole within that same radius, it's going to say, somebody already reported this pothole. Do you want to add your name to this request that's already in the system? And you'll get the same notifications that the original requester got. Also on the back end, the staff, should something work out where, someone's just outside of that radius and we've got two requests for really the same pothole, staff does have the ability to merge those service requests and maintain the database that way as well.
Sure. And thank you. And my last question would be that what would the cost be if I want to download this app? Would it be free?
Absolutely free.
Awesome.
Alderwoman Schmidt.
And I will just add, and having seen this and thinking about how we deploy this beyond Public Works even, for us to be able to get the data and understand resource needs in the city and how we balance them, if Jim's got a lot going on in a certain area, he not just him trying to make the case to us, he's got numbers behind it, or Tom with community development. I think it really puts a lot of power in our citizens' hands to interact with all of you guys, and I think it's a great tool. I think it will really take off.
Thank you. And one other thing to touch on there too is we've also been talking with the departments, and now that we have this unified request management system, we're hoping the staff will be able to on their computers at their desk, as they're receiving calls or receiving emails, they can also enter that information into the same request tracking system. So that way we've got a more complete data set to get that data from and then analysis.
Right. Thank you. Anything else?
Cool thing.
Thank you so much, Craig.
Thank you.
Really, really, really enjoyed it. Thank you. Now at this point, is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh, Mayor.
By Alderwoman Schmidt and
Mayor.
Yeah. Oh.
Can I say something?
I'm sorry. Oh, God, I forgot you were there. Oh.
No, I'm sorry. I'm
We
still
were so
here.
anxious to get out.
I'm trying to be mindful because this is very difficult because the voices keep fading in and out, and I don't know if people are not close enough to their mics or if it's the connections. But so I try to be as efficient as possible with that. But can I go ahead and ask my question?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Sorry.
Okay, good.
Go ahead and interrupt the motion to adjourn.
Well, yes, you'll have to get me when I'm there. Sorry. I guess the question I have for Craig, and I know this is, it can be a double-edged sword. So as exciting as it might be, what I'm worried about is, with the digital world moving so fast, have we thought about the capacity to handle all the requests that might be coming? And as much as this could do wonders for our brand, but I know it can also work in the other direction, meaning that if we're not able to respond as quickly as people expect, this might not be good for our brand.
Yeah. A couple ways to look at that. One of them is we're already getting the request via email or phone. Having this extra mechanism or this extra avenue for citizens to really relay that information to the city, initially may have an influx of additional requests just because it's easier, it's fun, it's new. They want to try it out. But the hope is, that eventually may cut down on some of the phone calls and some of the emails and people start funneling it through the app where it's more efficient for us. It's easier for us to respond to that information. As far as a service standpoint, this particular service from Public Stuff is a cloud-based service. You know, they use this nationwide. It's in cities ranging from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to East Peoria is actually using it right now. So, you know, the capacity's there. I don't think we're going to overload the system by any means, but I think you're getting more on targeting on the human resources side. And that's really what we're working on right now is with the Public Works Department and, you know, working with the staff to be able to use the system as efficiently as possible, to be able to set up the request in a manner where it's collecting the data without having us to go out and get more information, try and get as much as we can up front. And it right now, again, it really is a beta stage for us. You know, we're in the initial preliminary stages, so we really don't have a good example of what the workload's going to be yet. We're hoping it's manageable.
Does that answer your question, Boca?
Yes, it does. And one last thing, I would say just a comment, and I know as we move further into this, you know, let's not forget that there are people for whom the world of apps is you know, totally foreign, and you know, so we should keep in mind that we have to be able to address their needs in other ways, because I've seen that sometimes when something is successful, you know, people tend to move in that direction rather than providing other avenues for people to provide their feedback or express concerns. So that's all. And I think we can feel free to adjourn.
Yeah, we certainly aren't looking to replace, you know, a phone call or a call to the alderman or anything like that. So we definitely want those avenues. There's also another service that they're just bringing on board that's a text-based and a phone-based service. We have not chosen to subscribe to that service, but what that offers is somebody could actually just phone into an 800 number, call in, and their service request would be entered into the system through that way. So they wouldn't actually have to call someone else.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, we go back to our motion to adjourn by Alderwoman Schmidt. She was first. Is there a second? Second by Alderwoman Painter. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, Mboka. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.